and circular economy space. Also, she has a background in agricultural economics with several certifications in ESG sustainability. She holds a certificate in advanced responsible investment from the Cambridge Institute of Sustainability Leadership. She's endorsed by the UN Principle for Responsible Investment. She has a master in public and development management. She's also a chartered accountant and an appointed member of the panel of experts for adaptation benefit mechanism on climate change related matter for DFI. Madam Marilyn has served as moderator and panelist at a number of webinars and seminars, locally and internationally, on environmental, social, and governance. She has also played a key role in several workshops and training courses at board and management level, facilitating discussion on environmental, social governance for several companies. She has led several ESG projects across various sectors, from agriculture, FMCGs, public sector, pharmaceuticals, insurance, DFI, commercial bank, tech startup, and energy. So she's well versatile on the environmental social governance. And here today, she's going to be sharing her knowledge with us on the subject matter on market for ecosystem services, new challenges and opportunity for business and the environment. So please, let's make a warm welcome to Mrs. Marilyn Obaisa-Usola. You're welcome to our midst now.
Confirm you can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to present my deck. If I can have access now. Do I have access?
Yes, you do, Madam. You can go on.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Confirm you can see my deck as well.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you for having me, Neka. It's a big privilege because you sit in a very strong place when we talk about ESG, especially in the S, which is social. You are about the people, and what we are preaching is that life is more than profits. We should think about the people. We should think of profits. We should think about the environment. We should think about everything that then makes us sustainable, whether we want to be profitable or we want to, have a country that we love and we feel that is developed enough for us to live in. So having said this concept, I will just quickly go into, if you just introducing this entire concept around the fact that we are all into this consciously and unconsciously. I've been told to speak into markets for ecosystem services, new challenges and opportunities for business and environment, all under the overarching topic of today, which is ESG, sustainability, and the green economy. Yes, the world is changing, and all of us know we are experiencing it. I can't talk about ESG without giving this very good and important background for you to have an understanding of it and to be able to relate with it, because we are all into this. The world is changing in many ways, and the world is interdependent. We are all interdependent in one way or the other for one factor or the other. And this has come very evident to us as the world has, matured in its globalization. So just like today, if I make a statement on social media, in 3 minutes, everybody in the world would have received it if I'm as popular as probably the former president of America, Donald Trump. But this is what we are talking about. The world has, the globalization has matured. And in this maturity, it has triggered up a lot of other things that we call them disruptions, or we call them mega trends that is affecting the way we used to do things before, even to now. And I'm sure the advent of COVID the start of COVID was a very good one to even start with. Everybody began to understand how something small in one part of the world can affect the other part of the world, and how it can affect business, life, and all that. So when we talk about sustainability, I would be defining those things. I'll be talking to those things so that you will be able to understand how it is a disruption, not just, one of the myths around it is that, oh, it's a Western concept. You begin to see how this relates with you and how you are already even subconsciously and unconsciously being a part of it. When we talk about disruptions, there are many of them that are happening. Demographic and social change. You have shift in global economy, power, standards, frameworks. We have rapid urbanization. We have a lot of migration. We have resource scarcity, and then there's climate change, there's technology breakthrough. So many things that are disrupting our world today, which we all are familiar with. But when it comes to disruptions around sustainability, climate change, many of us can't really relate with it. But let's just even quickly define sustainability. And I know that the other speakers who will be coming in would expand on many of these topics even more than I will do. Sustainability is meeting the needs of our present without compromising the ability for future generations to meet their own needs. So that myth that when you talk about sustainability, they want to stop us from making profit. It's not correct. We are saying, how are you meeting your needs now? And thinking, in thinking also to say, this is my needs that I'm meeting now. If I meet these needs now, how does it compromise the future generation to meet their own needs? How best can I do for it to be a win-win? And when you talk about future generation, you then begin to understand why the people who are really grabbing this new concept are our new employees, our millennials, our Generation Z. And they are the ones that are new customers. They are our new investors. So if you're a banker here, whatever it is that you're doing, you kind of have customers and clients. Whether your clients are internal, which are maybe internal to you in your company, which are your employees, or external, which are your vendors, your clients, your customers, whatever your stakeholders are. Most of them, as we move on, would be either in that bracket of, increasingly in that bracket of, millennials and Gen X. And these people are beginning to wonder, are you planning for our future? Now, if you look at sustainability, it speaks into 4 main pillars: economic, which all of us are used to. If I ask you today that what makes you know that you are sustainable, you will give me an economic measurement, which is, I have so and so amount of money in my bank account. If you ask a CEO, you tell you about his cash flow, his profitability, his stand if he's on the stock exchange, where he is on the stock exchange. If I ask the government, they will tell you about GDP. They will tell you we are doing well, Forex, Naira to dollar, all the things that they keep talking about. You will just be hearing money, economic. But then it's more than that. What about our environment? What about the people? Are the people happy? What about your staff? What about what about social? What's your social capital? What's the environment? If today this whole country floods, all this noise we're making about Forex, it's not going to be the primary discussion. So these are the kind of things that sustainability is putting into. What about governance? That's one thing we are always shouting about. We want everyone to be accountable. We want everybody to treat our money well, transparency. So in one way or the other, sustainability is something that we are all practicing. So don't look at it as a far thing. It's just then, how do you then measure? That's where the issue then becomes. We're already measuring more. We measure more in terms of economic or financial terms. But what ESG then does, when you talk about the concept of ESG, is that it begins to tell you your performance as a country on the macroeconomic level, or on the microeconomic level, which is like organizations and firms, NGOs, and etc. Your new performance is now being expanded. It's not only that you're making profit. If you're making profit and all your staff jackpot the next day, what then happens to you? You start to lose again. So those are the kind of conversation that ESG is requiring you to. So in ESG, we are asking you to then incorporate more performance standards into your performance, your environment, your social and governance. How is your business impacting the environment? How is the environment impacting your business? So it's not just you impacting, but why that environment will impact your business? How are you planning for the future in the short, medium, and long term, especially in the medium and long term, because that's exactly what sustainability is. Are you resilient? Are you ready for the future? And so the ESG that you always hear is just the framework that helps us define sustainability, which is the overarching concept that is being pushed for performance. So the question I would ask you in the room as employees or as owners of business, or or as regulators, whatever pack of stakeholders that you put yourself in, you can even be in one or two. How are you defining sustainability? Are you just stopping at going concern? Because sustainability is challenging the meaning of going concern. It's challenging the meaning of resilience. What makes you know that you're resilient? How are you thinking about these things? Can we be sustainable? How do we sustain our small and medium enterprises? Are we looking at it in a more robust manner? Are we just looking at it narrowly? Are we looking at it in silos? Those are the kinds of conversation that sustainability drives. Having established that, many of us are very used to the concept of SDG. And it's important I put this concept down before I then go into the green economy and the market opportunities. Because when you understand this concept, it's very easy for you to grasp into all other things that I'll be discussing today. We all know the Sustainable Development Goals. I don't think there's anyone in the room that doesn't. At least we all know that it is US Sustainable Development Goals, which talks about, there are 17 of them. There's zero hunger, there's no poverty. And if you look at them, if you place them into brackets, you see the ESG, you see that about 8 of them sit under the environment, so on and so forth. So even the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN is also preaching this, which is trickled down into our own country development agenda, and then trickle down into now increasingly asking organizations to also trickle it down into their performance. So if you're doing social responsibility, social corporate responsibility before, and you think, oh, I'm only sustainable because I'm doing that, that's not enough. We are asking you, what are you using to measure your sustainability? That just sits in one bracket. It's just sitting in one bracket. What does help? How are you measuring the sustainability? Are you using the environment, social, and governance framework? Are you looking at your social corporate responsibility more strategically, into things that are meaningful for the world and for the people? Are you transparent in reporting? Those are the kinds of things sustainability is driving. So what are the drivers of sustainability? What's risk management? These days, our risk is not just only financial risk, there are many more. And even those risks that you look at as environment, social, and governance, now some of them many of them have financial impact. For example, many of us relate with energy, and we all know that we have energy. Our energy is not sufficient yet. We are still sitting in the fossil fuel space where it's the world is saying it has to fade out. So how do you manage this risk as an organization? How do you manage this risk as a country? So these are the kinds of risks that we want you to look at, and you find this risk in the World Economic Forum. Today we're not talking about all this. I'm just running through this before I go to the green economy. Then compliance, of course, standards and regulations are coming up. So if you're here, I see someone's hands raised up. Please, can you drop your questions in the chat box? We'll attend to it. You ask yourself, these regulations that are coming up, you cannot just be saying I'm reporting corporate social responsibility only. No, we are asking you, how are you treating your people? And I'm sure NECA loves this, right? How are you treating your people? What is the gender balance? Is there a gender balance in the organization? How are you treating your board governance? How are you treating all those things? Regulation and standards are coming. In fact, IFRS has taken on, this as well to ensure that our reporting is, transparent. We also have legal issues. I don't think any accountant here will want their organization to have legal issues that relate to S or E or G or E. In an environment, if you have some legal issues, that can affect your balance sheet and things like that. So legal issues also is driving this. I mean, I've had several meetings with different bodies of different law, legal bodies, whether it's the arbitrators or the lawyers, whatever the case is, talking about ESG and, very important. Brand value, of course, your organization is going to, in the nearest future, be looked at from different performance perspective. How are you treating your people? Very important. How are you treating, and I'm talking people here because today is NECA Day. So how are you, look at what's your governance like? It's going to affect your value of your stock in the stock exchange. And I'm sure you know that our NGX is also imbibing these principles very strongly. So you need to begin to look at these things if you're not looking at that. Then social license to operate, and also sustainable finance. There's finance for organizations that are performing in their sustainability they are integrating sustainability in their work. There's finance, there's funding, and all sorts of, structures and frameworks to ensure that you can get those kinds of support. So sustainability is refining and rechanging many of the things that we do. There's a lot to say here, but today we're talking about green economy. But we need to establish all these concepts that feeds into the green economy. We also have, I talked about regulation. We also have Nigerian Climate Change Act. It was signed into law in 2021, and is pushing a lot of narrative around our environment. There's a council that's operationalizing this act. And in fact, if you're an organization of 50 employees, 50 or more employees, there are certain requirements that this act require from you. And they are coming up with, some sort of roadmap, some sort of expectation that organizations are supposed to tie into. These things are important because, as I said, we have a matured, globalized world. The way we used to do things 20 years ago may not necessarily apply as we move on into the 21st century and probably the 22nd century. So it is very important that you begin to imbibe these things and begin to learn more about these things. So because of this act, it is driving the economy. This act, the Nigerian Climate Change Act, many of the disruptions I spoke about initially, many of the drivers I also spoke about initially, is driving three major alternative low carbon economy, which is called a low carbon economy. And you will see the green economy, you will see the blue economy, and you see the circular economy. Under these economies that we have talked about, there are multiple conversations. But today, we are focusing on the green economy, which speaks into low carbon economy. And I know that Dr. Itwa would give us, more explanation on this when it comes to his time, but I am just to set the stage. And there are so many things that go into this. You will see a lot of innovation. I'll be sharing some of my text. You'll see some of the innovation that has come in the green economy. You will see resilience is moving, resilience and driving business continuity, is giving some people competitive edge, is boosting investment. Like I told you, sustainable financing coming into the country, just financing the green economy. It may not be financing the economy, which is the high carbon intensity economy as much, but there's FDIs, being pushed towards. And these are reasons why you see, the like of presidents, and our presidents go to UN climate change events such as the COP. Like, I'm sure a lot of us know COP28. It was a very popular one. That's where you see us talking about minerals like lithium. That's why you see a lot of the things happening, because the green economy is emerging and is driving finance. It's also you see things around impact and value creation. Like I told you, it's redefining what we call the going concern, so on and so forth. Now, to the opportunities and challenges. I'll quickly run through this so I can take questions, but I feel questions will help us delve deep into the real needs in the room. What's the green economy? According to the United Nations, the green economy is defined as a low carbon, resource efficient, and socially inclusive economy. It's an economic system that focuses on environment, sustainability, and resource efficiency. And I'm sure that resonates with everyone in the room. It helps us to reduce what we call the carbon emission. And, I'm sure Dr. Eugene will speak into that very well. What is causing this emission? Why are we talking about climate change? Why are we talking about global warming and things like that? So, but this is what this economy is doing. But I am just to set the stage for that. And it's beginning to move things. And when you talk about green economy, three things should come into your mind. Sustainability, which I've clearly defined, resource efficiency. And we have the resource for this economy. We have the sun for solar, we have, abundance of solar. I won't go into the blue economy. So let me just talk about the green economy in the way that we would understand it very clearly. We have the abundance of the sun. We have abundance of the wind, which is also an alternative. Some of the things that are bringing in some alternative technologies within the green economy. And then like I said, three things: economy, sustainability and resource efficiency, renewable energy. Even if you don't believe in ESG or sustainability, you know that energy is not sufficient in Africa. I experience it, you experience it. And The only energy we used to know is going to get a lot of competition in the future. There's going to be competition for things like green hydrogen. So instead of using the normal fuel you're using, you either be using gas, you either be using green hydrogen, there's brown hydrogen, there's all sorts of, there's blue hydrogen. I'm also learning those things. Technologies and innovation is coming up. So the energy sector is going to get a lot of competition. There's biomass energy, there's solar, and then the third thing you should think about is policy. And I'm sure one of the speakers, Comrade, would speak very much into policy, how to drive, how ESG is being well driven into the policy, of the green economy, especially when we talk about environment and the social aspect, which is the people. Now, Nigeria has a wealth of potential when it comes to the green economy. Honestly, I just did a little. By the time you go in and research on it more, you'll see a lot of opportunities. One of it is access to international market. Right now, if you're playing in the green economic space, your access to international market may be accelerated. If you're not playing in this space and your present business is not also integrating ESG into its operation, you may have an issue with things like the carbon border adjustment mechanism policy that is coming out if you want to trade with Europe, and then, or that is being established, or, you are in the forestry, and you're doing paper, that line of business all the way through your value chain. And it's going to be big in Africa because we are one of the key global, supply chains for the globe. When you talk about supply chain, Africa sits in the heart of it. So these things are going to open up to us in the green economic space. Remember, it's just one economy that I'm speaking about. There's blue, there's circular, but today is for green. There's renewable energy. I don't need to say about that. Many of us know that we're going to, anybody you meet with, either buying solar energy, solar panels or inverters, because we're looking for alternative energy. Eco-tourism, very important. So there's a lot of tourism tied to that. You see a lot of that in the Middle East, where they are converting some of their oil rigs into tourist centers and making money out of it. So there's a lot we can do. It's just for us to open our mind to this new disruption that has come in. So disruption is not always bad. It comes with risk and it comes with opportunities. There's waste management. There's a lot of that in that you can invest in, that is green, and it's also helping us reduce our waste. There's also the Nigerian carbon market. We now have, a few weeks ago, federal government announced that they are putting together a blueprint for a $2.5 billion carbon market, where, you can go and offset your excessive carbon usage and, get some carbon credits and get some dollars, in that. Kenya is playing a very good role in that space, and I encourage you in the room to go and research it and see how that is bringing in forex into Kenya as a country. Then sustainable agriculture, I don't need to go into that. There's a lot of new things happening, climate smart agriculture. All of us know about the greenhouse. In fact, most of the food that we're eating now, if you are not careful, with time it's going to go into greenhouse farming, because we are using that as some of them as mitigation against the adverse climate that we are experiencing, and to also have food all year round. So that is also an opportunity. We also have green technology. Green technology and agriculture are really playing very closely in our days. And also with things like green cement in building houses. A lot of new things happening. And so we should key into these opportunities, expand and diversify our businesses as well into this opportunity. We also have green jobs. This can be an impact area for you as an organization to say, okay, I want to create green jobs, whether it's indirect or direct, or you want to deliberately go to the green space. And so that the jobs that you are giving out to people and getting people into are also termed as green job. So there's a win-win there, either as an impact area for you or even as a business area for you. You can go into this. I won't say much into all those technical concepts because Dr. Ito, as I said, is coming, and our comrade will come and give you more. In PwC, we've done a lot. One of the things that we have is we have one of our staff who has come up with a with an app or a technology that helps us to identify trees, helps us to know how much carbon that tree has sunk in, what are the benefits of this tree, just so many things about this tree, for both under the cap of the E, the S, and the G. And this is going to help us drive our carbon markets very cleanly in the country. And so things like this are coming up. And the carbon markets also driving foreign direct investment and other types of investment into our country. And this is what we're looking for. It doesn't stop there. There's also an app which also helps us to learn, because one of the challenges is that we have found in this space of sustainability is that awareness is important and capacity building is important. So we've developed this, he's developed this app. He has won an award for it. And please confirm you can see my screen. It just went off.
Yes, you can see it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I move on to the next. What are the challenges? Apart from the capacity building and is that challenge is a given? That's why we are here. I didn't bother putting it here. But one of the three major challenges I see in the green economic space is one, regulatory and policy barriers. How regulation is playing that role critically. I'm not saying that it's not happening. It's happening. There's still a bit of a challenge, of course, in implementation and things like that. But it's with good implementation, I'm sure this will not be a very huge challenge. But it's very important that is really looked in very critically. Then financing gap. I would tell you that the financing interest is growing. It may not be where it's supposed to be, but it's growing. And I would show you in a bit how that is happening. And then, technical and infrastructure. Of course, infrastructure is an issue. The reason for finance is because anything green, is seen to be very capital intensive at the start. So, for example, if you want to buy solar panels into your houses and all that, heavily intensive at the start. But over the years, if you are able to get that financing to buy, over the years, what you would pay or how you would use it or how you maintain it and all that, it's really, really nothing. I mean, I experience it, it's minimal, right? But the real issue is that financing at the initial stage of getting things like solar panel or getting into that business space. And so we are really pushing. One of the things that we do also in PwC is to support businesses, support the investors as well to marry these needs together as much as possible and create impact and create the value that is required to build our businesses and to develop our economy as a whole. Then technical and infrastructure, of course, like I said, we also need the technical skills. I don't see any reason why we should be importing solar panels from China. I don't see any reason why we cannot grow this infrastructure. We have the lithium under our soil, we have gold, we have everything that is required to build some of these things. We need to begin to build those things and think into that. Those are the key challenges that I see, apart from, of course, capacity building and awareness, which we will continue to do. And I'm sure NECA is doing this in the series and many series that NECA has been doing. I moved straight into call to action. What do we, after the call to action, just a few news flashes, and then I'll go into the question and answer. So these are our call to action. We must all, play a role. We must think through resource efficiency. We must be part of, like, for example, the carbon market had the the council that takes care of the Nigerian Climate Change Act had called for some comments on the framework for the carbon market. I was very happy to see that a lot of people attended, but it could have been more. So things like this play a part in it, play a role in it, be a part of what is going on, so that you can get this green economy as the case may be. And then I'll then go into just a few news flashes for us to see. Please confirm you can see my screen. You would see that, like I said, federal government sets a blueprint for 2.5 billion carbon market with the new committee working. A lot of people have gone into resource efficient building. I mean, you can imagine, some companies, their entire building is covered with solar panel. So you can imagine how, efficient the energy is. It also supports the finance, because of course there's a lot of cost savings from there. So many things. We look at the launch of electric cars. I know there's a what we usually call in Nigeria keke mapep, or you know, there are different names in Africa for it. The tricycle, also, that's upcoming. I did enter one recently. I was very impressed. You know, there's also the alternative for gas, diesel economy. There's so many things happening. There's also the conversion of, you know, the new building material. People not just focusing on cement alone. There are other building materials that are also coming up. And some of them also are green cement, as the case may be. There's also a news flash here where federal government is looking to provide subsidy, you know, in Nigeria through the World Bank loan. This is, we have no choice. We are seeing it very clearly that the competition for energy is going to grow. There's the economy, the green economy is going to soar. We can't be lacking behind in this. So with this, I just quickly go to my question and answer, and I just want to leave you in the room with this overview and challenge you to, you know, play a part in the ESG and sustainability conversation in implementation. Look at the opportunities, the risk and opportunities you have in the green economy. Does this affect your business? And does your business affect the environment? Many things that you can see. And I look forward to you learning more as, you know, more of the speakers speak. Thank you so much for your time. And I take my back seat for your questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Marilyn. That is well educative. And I'm sure that everyone is have picked one thing or the other from what you've passed across us today. For me, I think I pick on the area of different opportunities, green economy opportunities for Nigeria, where we youth, we believe that we can leverage on, such as the renewable energy, the green jobs, the green economy, and so on. So, so I'll come back to the house for question and answer. I don't know any question in the house. Please, we can indicate by just indicate raise of hand. So where will be called on to make our question known. Then before we go to the question on the chat. Okay, this is Mr. Babatunde Anifomoshe, right? I think I got it right.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you for the presentation. You've laid a solid background for what's to come. And this question basically, perhaps not for you, ma'am, perhaps for the organizers. The title of the event says ESG, mentions ESG as the focal point. I just wanted to draw the attention of the organizers and everyone, perhaps on this platform, to the fact that ESG is actually one of those things that is being transitioned as we speak, because ESG has quite a number of shortcomings, as with everything. Much more so that in terms of consistency and the methodology of actually coming up with ratings. The world is actually moving away from ESG to something, relating to transition. So I just wanted to drop this just in case for next time. Okay, the train is actually moving and leaving behind ESG for some of the. So I give you an example. When you talk about the E, it's the environment, you have hydrology, you have soil, you have air, those things you can quantify mathematically. But then you talk about social issues or governance, then turning those into numbers becomes an issue. So the question is, how do you then combine those three facets together and then come up with a rating? So a lot of investors, a lot of people around the world are, moving away gradually from ESG. So I just thought I will put that out there. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I quite agree with you to a certain extent. There are different school of thoughts on that, but increasingly, with the new standards and frameworks that have been brought up. These issues are being addressed, but the concept of measuring sustainability, I would say, is expanding. And if you look at these new standards, I think you will see that a lot of those things are being addressed. So the ESG itself is just an expanded way of addressing the measurement of sustainability. So it's not the rating on the stock on your stock exchange and all that. Yes, you're right. It had its deficiency, but it's not as if the concept itself is moving up to. And I could share you articles that also speak to the fact that that's not the idea. The idea is expanding on translations, measurements of these things, making them more solid. And these are conversations that happen at COP27, COP26, and COP28. I know that there's a school of thought that calls it ESG is fading off. It's just one school of thought that says it that way. But if you listen to both sides, what we are actually saying is that it's no longer just a check or a tick in the box. It's now we are expanding on how do we measure these things, and it's been increasingly being addressed. Thank you, sir. Next question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Babatunde, for the question, and thank you, the Marine, for the response. Okay, but because of our time, any question, please, let's drop it in the chat box, but I'll be calling Dr. Tokunbo Olorundami to ask this question. But every other question, please, let's drop it in the chat room because of our time. Dr. Tokunbo, please, you can ask your question.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all the delegates. And yes, I came in late, but I got the key gist in the delivery. My question is just about the state government, the local government. You mentioned and talked around the federal government a lot and the central government, and it appears that your talk was hanging. And I'm not sure if there's enough collaboration and integration of the local and state level where the state can buy into what's going on in a way that it can, get down to the grassroots. And I'm saying this because I do know that many states in Nigeria currently don't even have, the right policy in place to support any kind of collaboration. There are very few that even have a subhead in their budget for anything that has to do with climate or sustainability. Currently, so what can you say to that? Do you see an impact that can get the national coverage and get to the grassroots and, where people come integrated across all levels? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I will just start with when the act was even just signed into law. I think it was late in the year of 2021. And that's also a period where we were moving from one government to another, all the plans. So there would also, there's a bit of, there'll also be a slowdown in operationalizing the act. But yes, you're right, sir. At the federal level, yes, it looks like that's where, a lot of things are happening. But just remember that they are operationalizing, is just starting. I don't see any reason why states and subnationals and locals cannot, and local government, cannot key in. I'd see no reasons why they can't. I also don't see any reason why, states cannot even on their own, say, what, we want to focus on this area, etc. In my experience, what I've experienced in Nigeria is that there's a lot of knowledge gap. Most people there's no, we're not doing a lot of awareness. Knowledge gap, is the big issue. I know that Nigerians, once they understand it, they understand the business behind it, they see the opportunity, they see the risk. You don't have to teach a Nigerian what to do. But for me, I think that's one. Number two, I think there's also skepticism around it. People are still a bit draggy around it to say, look, they don't see how it relates to development, yet. So that skepticism is also there. But like I said, the act only just got signed in 2021 late, in between election year, settling election year, things like that. So of course it will drag. That's why it is like that. So it's still new. It's relatively nascent in the country. And so that's why you saw that my conversation was around that which has happened. And the essence of this awareness session is to also educate people to pick up from the knowledge and begin to operationalize, participate. You know, there are many people here that can participate in different aspects of it, very elaborate aspect of it. Like I said, I only was able to bring in a few. How many things can we speak in 20 minutes or 30 minutes? But I hope this has spurred people to, you know, investigate more. And I'm sure the other speakers would open up more of those discussions. My aim was to kickstart this session, this particular webinar series. So I look forward to hearing more from the other speakers as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Marilyn. And thank you, Dr. Tukumbo, for raising that question. And I'm sure that you are satisfied with the response given. Okay, moving ahead, I'm going to go to the next presentation because of our time. So I'll be calling, the next presentation will be from Dr. Eugene Itwa. So I'm going to be reading a bit profile on Dr. Eugene Itwa. So he is the CEO of Natural Eco Capital. Dr. Eugene Itwa is the National Project Coordinator for the elaboration of Nigerian long-term low-emission development strategy, which was launched last year at COP28 in Dubai. He co-led the technical team that drafted the climate change bill, now Nigerian Climate Change Act 2021. He's a regional coordinator for West African Capital Hub. He led the writing of Natural Capital for Climate Finance and Green Growth in East Africa for Chapter 3 in AFDB East Africa Economic Outlook 2023 on mobilizing private sector financing for climate and green growth. He's a former policy and advocacy coordinator for Natural Capital in African Development Finance and initiative by AFDB and Green Growth Knowledge Partnership. Is a consultant for the development of guidelines for assessing and mitigating environmental and social safeguard risk for the Global Center on Adaptation. He's a member advisory board of UNDP African Green Business and Financing Initiative under UNDP African Sustainable Finance Hub for South Africa. He's also the board member, governing council of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, that's FNECA. He's a facilitator of Sustainability Policy Commission, Nigeria Economic Summit Group. He's also a board member of Nigerian Network of NGOs and Center for Climate Change and SDG, Ibinede University, Nigeria. He's a fellow of Nigeria Environmental Society, Nigeria Institute of Sustainability, and International Institute of Risk and Safety Management. Dr. Eugene Itwa is a member of the College of Research Associate of the United Nations University Institute for Natural Resources in Africa, and he holds a PhD degree in environmental management. Today, Dr. Eugene Itwa will be taking us in the topic of ecosystem service flow and natural capital accounting, empowering stakeholders for sustainable business success in Nigeria. So as we call on Dr. Eugene Itwa to share his broad knowledge on this topic, we welcome you to our midst today. Welcome, sir, Dr. Eugene Itwa. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Titi. Thank you, my sister, for making those brilliant presentations. And indeed, for those that had actually asked those brilliant questions. I just wanted to quickly respond to one of them that talked about the transition from ESG to some other forms of measurement or whatever it is. Just to say that the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, had developed SDG IPA standard for enterprises. This standard guides businesses and investors in embedding sustainability and indeed the SDG into their internal management and decision-making practices. So in other words, support organizations in their sustainability journey. Yours sincerely, I'm one of the trainers accredited on the African continent, 4 of us in Nigeria as accredited trainers for SDG IPA standard. And this SDG IPA standard, it seems to be an overarching framework for ensuring that that movement that you talk about is well entrenched in the internal decision-making processes of businesses, especially. And now, moving from there to my topic to speak on the ecosystem services. Every now and then, all of us hear about ecosystem services. And indeed, we are part of it. But what does it really mean to us? And how have we been participating in the use, in the abuse, just name it, of these services? These are some of the things we'll just quickly look at in this. So my first slide here says, how are we promoting sustainable business practices? How can we actively contribute to ecosystem flows and leverage natural capital accounting for long-term success? Now, I recall earlier, Madam Nike Ajala had talked about the involvement of everyone here present in the discussion. We're going to do that. But for us to build a common vision or a common understanding, I have outlined this: biodiversity, ecosystem flows, natural capital, and natural capital accounting. What do they mean to all of us? This slide, if you check the definition, have given us what all of these are, the focus of each, the example of each, and indeed, example for businesses. For instance, if we look at biodiversity, we have said the variety of life on Earth, the diversity of species, the genes, and ecosystem. What does it talk about? The richness and variability of living organisms and their interactions. We talk about plants, different plant species, animals, fungi, and microorganisms. All of them are part of this. And specifically, if we look at agroforestry practices, a business that integrates diverse tree species into its agricultural practices is indeed doing things that have to do with biodiversity. For instance, he wants to enhance soil fertility, pest control, crop yields, and so on and so forth. All of these are agroforestry practices. That could be businesses. Ecosystem services flow, the movement of benefits or services that humans receive from natural ecosystems. This emphasizes the actual delivery of services. Are you talking about clean water, clean air, pollination? We talk about climates and so on and so forth. What are the benefits to all of us? And when a forest provides timber, carbon sequestration, or recreational opportunities, that is an example. And then wetland filtration, when you are doing anything that has to do with that, that is business. For instance, a business located near wetland benefit from the natural filtration of water, that is ecosystem service flow provided by that wetland vegetation in there. And natural capital is the stock of renewable or non-renewable resources. You can name it. We all are dependent on this. They yield benefit to all of us. Now, when we look at the focus, it extends beyond nature as a source of raw material for production to include the role of the environment and ecosystems in supporting all of us. Example, forest, wetland, fertile soil are all part of natural capital. And then forest resources. If you are doing any business in that area, for instance, a timber company relies on the natural capital forest to produce wood products for sale. The natural capital accounting is an accounting framework that systematically measures and reports on stocks and flows of natural capital. For instance, the UN stats, UNDP statistics, or UN United Nations statistics, had developed what we call system for economic and environmental accounts. And countries are using it to develop their accounts so that they can embed that as part of their GDP. The key focus is to assess the value of natural assets, for instance, like forests. And I also know that the National Bureau of Statistics in Nigeria is doing certain things in the area of natural capital accounting. And then the example is quantify the economic value of a wetlands water purification services or a forest carbon sequestration capacity. They are part of it. Then water treatment cost savings. When you do business in that area, for instance, as a beverage company, you could use natural capital accounting to assess the value of clean water services provided by nearby forests. So all of this provide a common understanding for us. Now, moving on, please, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, and indeed everyone, could you take your phone or your computer, just go to menti.com. Please, when you go to menti.com, I want us to get involved in this and make responses to these few slides we'll be giving you. We want everyone to be. And so the first question is, to what extent do you believe that understanding ecosystem services is crucial for sustainable business practices? To what extent do you? Strongly disagree, disagree, not neutral, agree, or strongly agree? Please, could we do that? We need people to respond to it. I hope you can see the number there. You can see the number up there, the link for your voting. Great, somebody has responded. To what extent do you believe that understanding ecosystem services is crucial for sustainable business practices? We have about 159, up to 160 persons here. And we've just got 9622, 410, 19 persons who had voted. Please, would you want to do yours? We encourage everyone to be involved, please. It's quite fast. Let's quickly go ahead. I know it may be difficult. Just go check your Google or so, and then search for menti.com. And then you will see a bar there where you put this code. And then you'll be able to, please, we encourage you to be involved in it. We've got about 32 persons who have done this. Out of 161 persons now online, we encourage everyone to get involved, please. Now, the majority say that they strongly agree that ecosystem services is crucial for sustainable business. That is what we can see here. Thank you very much. We have another question. Please, we still encourage, if you have not been able to do it this time. Just go there because we have about 5 questions we're going to run through. How well do businesses in Nigeria currently engage with local communities and other stakeholders when managing ecosystem services? To what degree do they have? Take note of what we consider to be all of these ecosystem services. To what extent do they engage stakeholders when managing ecosystem services? Okay, so the majority for now is saying poorly. They poorly engage local communities and other stakeholders. Well, it's giving us some level of understanding in the management of our ecosystem services. Oh. Okay, I'll move to the next one. We have another question. How important is it for businesses to consider power dynamics among stakeholders when making decisions related to ecosystem? How important is it for business to consider power dynamics among stakeholders when making decisions that are related to ecosystems? A number of us are here saying that it's extremely important. Okay. At least no one has said it's not important. The majority is saying extremely important, very important. So, and some other persons had said slightly important. We are 162 persons. About 45 persons out of 162 had said make more opinions on this. Yeah, thank you very much. We can see it's rapidly growing. Thank you. I'll move on to another one. Do you believe that empowering stakeholders positively impact long-term business success? Do you believe that empowering stakeholders, when we talk about stakeholders in this, do you believe that empowering stakeholders positively impacts long-term business success? For instance, if you empower your stakeholders, if you are in the banking sector, you decide to empower, first and foremost, your vendors, those who supply you items and the like. Will it impact positively on your business? If you now decide to expand it a little bit and engage us, clients, your customers, will it impact on your business positively? Of course, you can map your audience, your target audience, your stakeholders. You can do the mapping and know who is relevant at whatever time. So 35 out of 162, again, you all said that you strongly agree that it does. Yet, one more, and then we'll finalize. How aware are businesses in Nigeria of the link between effective ecosystem service management and overall business resilience? How aware? To what degree are they aware? One says not aware. 2, 4 says somewhat aware. Moderately aware. Somewhat aware is coming out stronger. 160 audience here. We've got 28 only saying something on this. We encourage you more to do, please. We need you to vote. Those putting thumbs up, please use that to vote. And then we've got 25 out of 160, 26 now out of 161 saying that somewhat businesses on the link or are aware of the link, rather. Thank you very much. Then the last one. Do you believe that aligning business goals with environmental stewardship positively impact long-term profitability? What are your thoughts on this? We encourage everyone to vote. And 19 out of 157 now, they are saying yes. Strongly agree. Only 5 say they agree. 28, it has grown now that they strongly agree. 31 is growing. Now, all of these questions tend to prick our minds and then reflects on the topic we're looking at. Talking about ecosystem services, and then talking about natural capital accounting. Then the stakeholders involved in this, to what degree are they benefiting? Thank you very much. 30 of us here said strongly agree. Now, when we talk about ecosystem services, what are we really talking about? Those natural resources that benefit all of us. They provide services that are not just, that directly impact on our lives, simply put. What about the economy? Every nation's economy is dependent on these ecosystem services. In fact, you could say that the economy is a subset of all of this. What about the quality of life we have today? Just to say it underpins our existence. Without this, we cannot live. We rely on ecosystem services for survival and well-being. Are we talking about food security? Agriculture, for instance, depends on pollination by insects. Clean water is essential for human health. If you talk about climate resilience that my earlier speaker had talked about, climate, coastal wetlands, we understand assist us to protect against storms and sea level rise. What about the overall economic prosperity? Tourism contributes to that. Some countries are dependent on tourism. In fact, their GDP is grown through tourism. So we must understand the connections that will assist us to manage all of this more responsibly. Why should we indeed care? Like we just said, just imagine a world without pollinators, without fertile soil, without forests regulating our climate. Like we have just talked about, they contribute very well to our well-being. They are the invisible threads that weave our lives together. Let's look at what we can pick out from this. Let's just picture a river of benefits. Some of us, we talk about this as ecosystem service categories and so on and so forth, provisioning, regulating, promoting, and cultural. Now, when you talk about provisioning, fresh water, food, timber, and raw material. When you talk about regulating, you are talking about climate regulations, for instance, water purification and disease control. Supporting services, soil formation, nutrient recycling, and habitat provision. And then culture or cultural services, recreation, spiritual connection, and aesthetic enjoyment. Of all of this, we take delight in enjoying. Which of these does not suggest robust life to us? All of us benefit from this. Like that first sentence of bullet says, ecosystem services flow from natural systems to human beneficiaries. All of us are beneficiaries. So the categories of ecosystem services, you have them here. We just talked about them. So when you get the slides, we will share. Please, you can go through this. Trade-offs and synergies. There are trade-offs. For example, converting a wetland into agricultural land may reduce flood regulation and water purification services. Some of the nightmares you have regarding gully in southeastern states of the country, it was because lands, vegetations were removed from all those lands, whether grasses or otherwise, vegetations were removed. And then the force of water started tearing them apart. When you have droplets of water, rains, and you do not have any vegetation cover, that droplet of water losing the soil. And then you know what to follow it, movement of the soil. And that's why gully will eventually result from such. And the synergy, some services reinforce each other. Forests, for instance, simultaneously provide timber provisioning and carbon sequestration regulating. So there is a synergy even amongst these ecosystem services. And just to talk about the spatial and temporal dynamics, ecosystem services vary across space and time. Spatial, we talk about space. Temporal, we talk about time. And so in this sense, wetland in one region may provide different services than those in another due to climate, soil, and species differences. When you talk about temporal, seasonal changes affect services. For instance, Nigeria is just trying to exit the dry season. You know what had happened to the vegetation in the course of the dry season. What will now happen when rains drop on them? So we need to appreciate these dynamics for informed decisions. Even sustainable development recognizes the interconnectedness of environmental, social, and economic aspects. So achieving SDGs require understanding ecosystem services and their flows. For instance, SDG 15 focuses on conserving ecosystems and biodiversity. Will you say SDG 13 on climate change does not touch this? What about life in water? And so on and so forth. How ecosystem services flow relates to businesses. NECA members are businesses. Businesses are intricately connected to ecosystem services. Recognizing this connection allows companies to manage risk, seize opportunities, and contribute to sustainable practices. Now, how do you depend on this? Many companies rely on natural resources and ecosystems for their operation. Do you use water? If you use water, what about all your raw materials? Where are they from? They are from nature. They are from the earth. So in other words, you are dependent on this. If you engage in tourism, businesses want to preserve landscape, wildlife, and natural beauty. And that's indeed enhance their businesses. What are the risks? Operational risk, for instance, scarcity of fresh water due to ecosystem degradation can increase cost. Siltation affects hydroelectric facilities. And somebody was talking about this yesterday. Some of the dams that you have, they are silted, and so there are challenges. Coastal businesses face disruption from flooding. If you go to the coastal zone in Lagos, you will see how impacted negatively businesses that have anything along that chain have. And then opportunities, improving water use efficiency or creating on-site wetland to avoid new water treatment infrastructure. Regulatory and legal risk, fines, user fees, and lawsuits related to ecosystem service laws. We also have this opportunity again, engaging with government to develop protective policies. You can do that. Reputational risk is also tied to it. Protest by NGOs due to sustainable practices. Another thing is implementing sustainable practices to differentiate corporate brand. You can do this. Organizations are doing this. Blue chip companies are indeed engaging in a number of this. So for you to strengthen your performance, you could be looking at revenue sustainability. So sustaining revenue by ensuring ecosystem services today is quite apt. Cost reduction, you want to identify cost-effective measures. For instance, water use efficiency. I recall so many years back, we did what we call environment-oriented cost management. And part of it was looking at water. We had used, if you remember in those days, Chi Limited. Chi Limited had the Tetra Pak of Chi Vita. In those days, that was when they were using the Chi, rather the blue, yellow, brown Tetra Pak, that Tetra Pak. And of course, as part of the things we had given attention to, I remember we told them how they can reduce their packaging. And they came up with packaging that followed. And so many other organizations that were going into loss. I still remember Teju Foam that thought they were not making any loss. We looked at their systems and then we told them where they were losing. So it is very relevant what we're talking about. Limited or liability and compensation, assessing liability related to ecosystem impact. And of course, social benefit that my earlier speaker had talked about, contributing positively to communities and stakeholders. Corporate ecosystem services review, you can do this as well. It will encourage you to improve, for instance, your water use efficiency, engage with government or for protective policies and indeed implement practices so that you can indeed differentiate your brand. There are methodology for getting this done. Natural capital that we talked about earlier and its relevance to biodiversity and ecosystem services. First and foremost, just to let you know that natural capital accounting is a powerful tool that could be used to measure changes in the stock and condition of natural capital. Recall earlier I talked about the system for economic and environmental accounts developed by the UN statistics. But there's also this that can be used by businesses. We call natural capital protocol that provides an overarching framework that businesses could use. It was developed by Capital's Coalition. By the way, I'm the regional coordinator of Capital's Coalition Hub, West Africa. Capital's Coalition Hub is part of the global Capital's Coalition that had developed that tool for assessing natural capital. Natural capital accounting aims to integrate the flow and value ecosystem services into accounting and reporting systems in a standardized manner. So you now have that standardized parts that can assist you in getting that done. Natural capital accounting provides a holistic approach to understanding and valuing our natural environment. So, by accounting for natural capital, we all can make informed decision. That informed decision balances economic development with environmental sustainability. And that is why countries are enjoying to see how they embed this using the system for economic and environmental accounts. And like I said earlier, the National Bureau of Statistics is already doing something, developing some account. They've developed energy accounts. So many accounts can be developed. And then business implication, natural capital accounting has the potential to provide a concrete business for business performance reporting, or rather a basis for business performance reporting. So it can provide you all of that. It's going to assist you to map your impact and dependencies. Your use of water, for instance, your externalities, just name it. It's going to assist you to map all of that. When we talk about measurements and integration now, we would look at it from this angle. The natural capital accounting tracks changes in natural capital across different policy areas. Recall earlier I said we can develop accounts in various areas. So you can look at this forest, for instance. It provides a common set of rules and methods for assessing the state of ecosystem and their services. And so, by integrating natural capital into accounting and reporting system, it will help all of us to understand the relationship between the environment, society, and the economy. You can read more of this, why it matters for NECA members, because we can use this to have or make informed decision, and then align our business strategies with environmental goals. For decision, yeah, you can look at this. I'll leave this so that you can do that. The sustainable businesses, you can latch it to the, just to let you know that sustainable business practices that are aligned with environmental goals and engage stakeholders contribute not only to profitability, but also to the overall well-being of people and the planet. And indeed, the integration of ecosystems into business strategies and the role of natural capital accounting in decision-making are essential for this. You can read this, why it matters, when you get this slide. Just to say that businesses can source material sustainably, reducing the ecological footprint. I will also leave this so that you can read it later on, because you will have the slide. Why it matters to business. Businesses do not operate in isolation. They are part of local communities. So bring this into your overall management. In terms of practical application, I will quickly talk about organizations in Nigeria, some that perhaps unknowingly have already gone into this space and doing wonderfully well. For instance, InterSwitch Group, they are doing something. Whether they are actually aware that it has to do with this is a different ballgame. InterSwitch recognizes the importance of natural capital for its operation. We have made that assumption. By promoting digital payment solutions, they reduce the need for physical resources, e.g. paper currency, and contribute to financial inclusion. And so you can use this to inform your decision more. So we can say here that the natural capital accounting is helping InterSwitch to understand the value of ecosystem services related to all of these aspects that we mentioned earlier. What about this organization, Co-Creation Hub? The same thing, also fostering and innovation and entrepreneurship. They are invariably creating or following this path. What about this organization? The same thing, aligning with ecosystem services by the way they do their business. Unfortunately, we have talked about unequal distribution of ecosystem. We mentioned this earlier. Looking at the spatial distribution or the temporal distribution. Not all stakeholders benefit equally from them. Some individuals or groups have better access to ecosystem services than others. And this unequal distribution can be influenced by various factors, including power dynamics. And so for us to be able to deal with this, we have talked about this in relation to businesses. In looking at it from the power dynamic angle and equitable access, we've said stakeholders operate within power dynamics. Stakeholders hold more influence due to factors like land ownership, economic strength, or political connections. We must recognize these imbalances in it. And indeed, because it creates an unfair access to ecosystem services. Equitable access promotes long-term sustainability by promoting resource depletion or by preventing resource depletion and social conflict. What do? We all want to empower the stakeholders, businesses, local communities, or decision makers in creating a collaborative environment where all of us benefit equally from this. Practical steps for NECA members: collaborate, integrate. You will have a business that is long-term, simply put. In conclusion, ecosystem service flows reveal the intricate relationship between nature and society. By understanding ecosystem service flows and valuing natural capital, Nigeria businesses can drive positive change And we hope our members at NECA will do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eugene Itwa. That was really enlightening. And from my view, I picked that it is very important that we need to balance between the ecosystem and the businesses for sustainability, for us to achieve sustainability. Thank you so much. So next, without wasting time, I'll be calling on Comrade Echezona Azuzu. Is a national coordinator program on climate change, green jobs, and just transition Nigerian Labour Congress. He'll be speaking to us on the role of workers in driving environmental sustainability. You're welcome, Comrade. Hello, Comrade.
Perhaps we can start with some questions while we try and get Comrade.
Okay. Okay, so we have any question? Anyone that would like to ask a question on the last presentation? While we wait for the Comrade to join us.
Hello, I'm here.
Oh, okay. You're welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, so you can go ahead. We'll take the question and answer after the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Unfortunately, I tried to start my video, but okay, fine. The video is on now. The video is up and running. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Comrade Eche Asuzu from the Nigeria Labour Congress. I head the Climate Change, Green Jobs, and Just Transition Program of the NLC. My presentation is on the role of workers in promoting and driving environmental sustainability. I have a few slides. I'll just go slides because of time. First, we'll go to the basics. Climate change is real. The earth is warming more than it has ever done as a result of largely anthropogenic interventions of man, especially through the emission of greenhouse gas emissions. This has gone on since the Industrial Revolution, and it has gotten to a crisis point, to the point that even the UN General Secretary, a few years ago, just before COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, said that it's climate hell. So it's really a very serious crisis we found ourselves because of human intervention with nature. We just had to talk about eco-capital and how the environment helps to actually build sustainability and how that cycle of coexistence has been distorted. So the climate change issue is real. But then more importantly is to point out the fact that climate change is also a workplace phenomenon. It's largely a workplace phenomenon, and that is something that we need to actually take on board. Please, can you present the slide? There's a slide presentation. I think it will make it easier. Sister Adenike, I think the slide will make it easier so that everybody follows. If you can share the slide, that would be helpful. Thank you. So the basics deals with the fact that this is a workplace crisis, it's a workplace issue, because most of these green gas emissions are actually, they are emitted from the workplace. We have a kind of audit of different workplaces or different areas where you have these emissions, and all of them actually happen to be in the workplace, from utilities the production of energy, the power stations, all of these places are workplaces. You have workers. We talk of the coal plant, these places are also workplaces, including the nuclear stations, they're all workplaces. You have workers who work in these places. You have employers of labor who engage the productive capacity of labor for profit maximization. So all of these things are all within the confines of the workplace. So climate change is essentially a workplace issue. And that is why the Nigerian Labour Congress and indeed other organized workers representative organizations are interested in this matter. And also, I'm sure that is why NECA too is very much interested in this matter. Concerns both workers, concerns employers of labor, and also government and social partners. So we need to make that point very clearly. Despite holding 28th Conference of the Party so far, the world still lags behind in mitigation, adaptation, and financial commitments to tackling this challenge of climate change. And I've always thought, why is that so? We come to COP and we talk and we come up with agreements, come up with declarations and all kinds of commitments, but then climate change still, the global emission of greenhouse gases continues to be on the increase. And you wonder, why is it so, despite all these commitments made? Yes, some progress have been made in one or two areas, but largely, overall, we have not made as much progress as we want to make, especially given the Paris Agreement of 2015, all those benchmarks that have been were agreed by different countries or state parties to UNFCCC. You see that we are still lagging behind very significantly. So I believe that we have not made much progress because the real actors have not been brought into the center of global climate change discussion. If it's a workplace thing, and you're not bringing in the real actors, workers and employers organization, then you find out that it will be difficult for you to make as much progress as you want, because you will need commitment from employers of labor who deploy the factors of production, you know, the produce of land or the materials that are used in the production process that actually are released into the environment and becomes harmful. So you need their cooperation. You need the cooperation of workers also to be able to deal with this issue. Without this cooperation, if you're just talking, government is talking to government, government is talking to NGOs, I'm not sure much progress will be made. And that is actually a major big climate engagement. Is a major weak line that needs to be addressed. So for me, that is very, very basic. Even the issue of that is why when they talk about greenhouse gas emission, and understanding that this thing is from mass intervention with the environment, especially since the Industrial Revolution. So it happens in the workplace. And then you talk about just transition. Just transition is actually a lexicon that was
We sincerely apologize for that. I think he's having a technical issue. So while we wait for him to join us back, do we have any question in the house regarding the last presentation?
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Good afternoon, sir. Mr. Toye.
Oh, it's afternoon. Good afternoon. Thanks
Yes.
for a lovely presentation. The first presentation was wow.
When you
And
get
these
problem,
other
why should I solve the problem? Right? I was not.
Okay, can we all mute our mic, please? Okay, Mr. Toye, you can go ahead. Okay, comrade, you're back. Okay, please, you can proceed with your presentation.
My network. Try to can you hear me? Hello,
Yes, we can hear you,
can you
sir.
hear me?
We can hear you, sir. Hello, comrade. Okay, I think his network is not okay. So while we wait for him, Mr. Toye, you were asking, wanted to ask your question. Can we have your question now while we wait for him to join us back?
all right. All right. Thank you so much. So the question was, in some other climes, what they do while they look at whether the ESG construct or maybe it's a sustainability construct, and in some cases, maybe the CSR construct, they try to look for practical ways to create business opportunities, around these constructs. So what constructs exist in Nigeria right now around these constructs? If we know what those constructs are, people will then, tap into those constructs to try to create, or to try to drive, the sustainability discussion or the ESG, approach. So we need practical, business opportunities around these constructs. So which ones exist right now? Thank you so much for the opportunity to ask the question.
Okay, thank you so much. So the question is, which type of the ESG which type of ESG is currently in use? That's the question. Hello, can you hear me? I think this network is
Okay. Yes, I can hear you now. Yes, I can hear you now. You muted me before, so I've been unmuted. So what I'm saying, I'm not talking about the ESG approach. I'm talking about what kind of business opportunities exist around this construct, whether it's an ESG construct or it's the sustainability construct, maybe the 3Ps, people, profit, and planet, or is it the CSR construct, corporate social responsibility? What business opportunities are available, or are organizations like NECA creating intentionally, with intentionality to ensure that people have business opportunities? Because see, when business opportunities exist, people can then drive, those constructs, irrespective of which ones they are. There are points of intersection between the constructs, though there are lines of distinction between those constructs. But what's important is to have business opportunities around those constructs. When you have business opportunities around those constructs, whether people realize it or not, they'll be driving those constructs. Otherwise, what you'll be doing is having an academic exercise, and we don't want to have that. That's why you've had the situations where people talk about things again and again and again and again, but they are not tangible things that actually, drive those constructs. So That's where the question really is. What kind of business opportunities exist in Nigeria? For instance, in the European Union, they've got business opportunities that help them drive their constructs. In North America, they've got business opportunities that help them drive their constructs. So right here, right now, what business opportunities have they created to help them drive these constructs? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Toye. I'm sure Dr. Eugene is taking note of that. Then I also have, let's have all the questions before I respond to them. I have Dr. Tokumbo is also raising his hand. Can we have your question, sir?
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you to Dr. Chua. I followed many of his writings on natural capital, quantification. My question will be tailored a bit likely like the earlier question, because again, I'm coming back to the communities, especially in relation to what Dr. Tua spoke about, which is the ecosystems management. I want to know if he, as one of the 4 accredited trainers in Nigeria, for me, I think that's a shock. 4 to over 300 million people. That tells you already that we're in trouble. But that's not the question. The question is, how well is the ecosystems approach, which is a system for environmental assessment in project planning, project delivery, project implementation? How well is that system, integrated into our culture? And I'm using the word culture because you've mentioned power relations or political relations. And I know that in our ecosystem, you have rights holders, you have stakeholders, and there's a fine line between these two guys. Many times we have this kind of top-down approach where communities resist modernization, they resist neoliberal, and capitalist approach to natural asset management because they see it as, strange. So my question is, how well is this system adapted to our culture and contextualized to our climate such that our people can easily adapt to it and begin to use it? Because the climate crisis is real and it's like the sky falling on every one of us.
Hello, Dr. Tokubo. We are unable to hear you again.
Let me just quickly respond to him. And Titi, I think rather than giving everyone the room to speak, you don't have time any longer. Why don't you allow people to put their remarks, questions, contributions in the chat box so that you can check your time and close out, please. What I just quickly wanted to say, I talked about the SDG EPA standard. SDG EPA standard of the UNDP is a fairly new standard developed by UNDP. So there's no trouble at all if only 3 of us are, for now, the only ones accredited. It's an open program. People can be accredited. You can also go in for it. There are trainings that are tied to it that you have to go through before you can be, then you do the exam and then become an accredited trainer. So you can do that. Just all of us here, if you're interested in it, you can search SDG EPA standard and then you'll find it. And in terms of the system for economic accounting, is the government that actually is using that to mainstream natural capital or ecosystem services, let me put it that way, generally into the decision making or as part of the overall development plans for the country. That is the way it goes. And then recall earlier I talked about for businesses, you have some other evaluation method that could be used or frameworks. And I talk about, for instance, the framework by natural capital. In those days, natural capital. coalition, now Capitals Coalition. I talked about the protocol, National Capital Protocol that have been developed. In fact, you have the supplements that focuses on the financial institutions and others. So we can all get, all you just need to do a little bit is search the online, and then you get information on all of this. The instruments are available for anyone to use and to go through. But of course, like I mentioned, that Nigeria is doing something using the system of for economic and environmental accounting, and they've developed some accounts, such as energy accounts, which they are trying to embed in the GDP measurement. It's evolving. Just to let you know that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Itwa. I think our moderators seem to be locked out by the network. So we'll have Comrade Echezina Asuzu continue his presentation. Comrade, you have the floor, sir. Thank you. Comrade, you are muted. You have the floor.
Excuse me. I'm actually, no, I want to talk. I'm actually in a meeting. I'm moderating the meeting. Is it possible for me to stay and just...
Hello? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my network has been the weather changed around here, so I work. So I'll quickly try to go through these slides. So I was talking about the basics on how the climate change issue, environmental sustainability issue is a workplace issue. And I have tried to also say that workers have a role to play. Employers of labor also, the employers of labor like NECA also has a role to play. I'll quickly move on the role of workers. First is that workers need to understand that environmental sustainability, the ESG, as we're talking about, has impacts their work, impacts their health, impacts their livelihood and their families and also communities. So I think it's important to understand that workers need to be made to understand that. So that means workers will need assistance, will need support to actually educate their members. Trade unions will need support to educate their members. They also have a responsibility to educate their members, use their resources to educate their members on the fact that this issue of environmental sustainability affects their health, affects their livelihood, affects their families, affects their communities. So that point of the role of information dissemination, like we're doing today, is very critical. It's a role that workers and workers' organizations should play. Why is it important for them to understand? The fact is that recently at the World Economic Forum, the ILO revealed that 70% of the workforce will likely experience excessive heat stress during their work life, and you know the effect of that on the respiratory system, cardiovascular system, even the reproductive system, you know, and these things affect workers. So that is why workers need to understand that this thing is directly in their face and is directly it has a great impact on their health. and on their livelihood, their ability to be productive. That's very important. Also, there's also an estimate that there will be a spike in climate-related malaria infection because as you have flooding, incidences, flash flooding and all that, and you have drainages being clogged, and then you have water pools all over the place. It offers a perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes. And then workers, who gets bitten by the Anopheles mosquito would most likely get ill and lose productive time. So it's important that workers understand that this issue of environmental sustainability affects their work, affects their health, affects their livelihood, and affects their communities and their families. Also, workers must take ownership, because if workers understand that it affects them, then it will encourage them to take ownership. Ownership is important. They must take ownership of this crisis. They must take ownership of environmental sustainability. They must take ownership of the fight against climate change. It should not be seen as a fight for the for COP20, for UNFCCC, or for the NCCC in Nigeria, or for government. Is actually something that workers must take ownership of when they understand that this thing is directly affecting them. So with that knowledge, ownership comes. And when we talk about ownership, we're talking about being at the center of decision making. Is a critical element in ownership. Right now, workers and employers are not at the center of the table. I don't know why it is so, but like I said earlier, maybe that is why we have not made much progress in terms of climate change actions that can actually reduce the global warming we're all experiencing. So workers and employers must be in the heart of this discussion, in the heart of the engagement, in the heart of necessary actions that need to be taken. Right now, we have a climate change act that was passed in 2021. It has been a clamor. It's a demand of organized labor in Nigeria that workers must have a representative in NCCC. You can't discuss climate change without workers. You are taking a walk in the park. You are not. It means you are not ready to address issues. You can't discuss climate change without employers like NECA. It means you are just taking a walk in the park. You are not ready to engage the issues because they are all workplace issues. If you don't deal with them at the workplace, you are just wasting your time. So it's important that representatives of these organizations, the real actors in this issue, are in the center of policy making, center of decision making. It will go a long way in the fight for environmental sustainability. And also, workers, number 3, must embrace evidence-led policy frameworks, policy making, policy decisions. We cannot fly in the blind. We need evidence. We need data. Therefore, support must be given to workers' organizations, employers' organizations to generate data. What is the extent of this problem? How many workers are vulnerable? How many businesses are vulnerable? I heard Dr. Itua talking about, business practices, that are environmentally compliant. So we need to understand, we need to have the data. We cannot be talking in abstract terms. We need real data. How many businesses are complying with the environmental guidelines? How many businesses need help? How many workers are vulnerable? How many workers are not going to be able to make this transition from the carbon laden production platforms to the envisaged green economy of today and tomorrow. So it's very important that we have data on our hands. How many workers are currently are being impacted? How many workers have lost their health as a result of climate change challenges? This data needs to be on our fingers so that we can make better advocacy, so that we can draw the attention of government that these things have real consequences on real people, not just assumptions, real people. So data is important. Evidence-led policy making is very important. Number 4, workers must demand environmental accountability. Just recently, the House of Reps started to talk about the ecological fund, and this fund has been there, and nobody seems to pay attention to how this fund is managed. Clearly, we cannot say with every breath of honesty in us that this fund has been properly been put to good use, because we see all kinds of degradation, all kinds of environmental issues from all over the country, erosion, desertification, and yet every year we pour money into ecological fund. In fact, as a matter of fact, on the streets, the word on the street is that this fund is a cash bay for the big boys and the big girls. It's where politicians want to dip hands to do one or two things. They see it as a kind of loose funds, that can be played around with. That comes from ignorance of the need to protect the environment, ignorance of the role the environment plays. in ensuring sustainability, in ensuring that human beings survive and that businesses survive, because business need environment, need a conducive environment, need a working environment, need an environment that is in balance, because nature was created to be in balance for businesses to thrive. So when ecological funds are mismanaged, workers should be alarmed, because it is actually, they are the front line. They're in the front line of the devastation that will come, the consequences of the mismanagement of ecological funds. So we are asking, during one of our pre-COP 28 meetings we had in Abuja, that issue came out clearly, and workers in Nigeria came to a consensus that we need to, up the ante on the demand for accountability on ecological funds in Nigeria. I don't know if the Ministry of Environment is here. I think that concern should be taken up seriously. The House of Representatives, they are investigating this, and I think it's important that we all begin to raise this question. NECA should also join force with the NLC to raise question, because businesses will be affected if the environment is neglected and if the funds for the management of the environment is squandered by politicians. Number 5, workers must ensure that social dialogue on climate change and environmental sustainability finds very clear expression and delivers unambiguous mandates through collective bargaining agreements. That is where the rubber jams the road. It is a collective bargaining agreement that will make real progress in climate change discussions, because it's a workplace thing. If it will change through collective bargaining agreements. If the workers understand that continuous emission of greenhouse gases and all kinds of pollutants into the atmosphere and the environment, that is a danger to themselves and their families. It's a danger to their even their livelihoods. It's a danger to sustainability. Then actions will be taken and it will be discussed through social dialogue, and collective agreements will be reached between employers and workers to say, we need to stop this kind of the use of this kind of chemicals, the use of this kind of raw materials, and then discussions can go on what substitutes can we use. Is there a way to now begin to make transition? What are the needs? What does the management need to make transition from carbon laden, heavy footprint production to green economy? So all of these discussions will happen, and workers should be able to also air their voice. Workers who are affected even in the handling of these dangerous chemicals. You can imagine these chemicals are injurious to the ozone layer, injurious to the environment. What of the workers that handle them? I mean, these things should also be taken on board. So I have a few case studies of progress that have been made in other countries. Like in Italy, Enel Group has actually been able to engage workers. The Enel Group is an energy company in Italy that has employed has more than 60,000 workers in employment all over the world. In Italy, they've been able to make this success, and also in other countries where they operate, they discuss with workers and they come up with agreements. They carry workers along in terms of they ask the questions of environmental sustainability, and they seek the opinion of workers, and then they enter into agreement to ensure that as they make transition from heavy carbon footprints, that they're able to also carry workers along. The issue of reskilling, upskilling, the issue of retraining and all that, to ensure that workers are not left behind, to ensure that workers have they have some kind of assurances, as this transition is made. And then we also have an example from Schweinfurt in Germany, where you have this a community in northwestern Bavaria, part of Germany, where the community have been able to say, look, we need to engage unions in discussions, unions and NGOs, and then management of businesses, especially in that part of Germany where they have a very strong automotive industry. What can we do to ensure that production is greener and cleaner, and also done in a way that workers who are also members of that community are also carried along, that there are guarantees, safeguards against job losses, but through training, retraining, and all that. These are all part of the just transition agenda. And I think also Nigeria is currently developing a just transition work plan. It's important that some of these things, some of these best examples, as we see in other countries, are also adopted. The good part of them, or the ones that are relevant to our own situation, should be looked at and then mainstreamed into our just transition work program. Then finally, look at a place like Denmark. In Denmark, this kind of collaboration between workers and employers of level is there, and some of these questions are addressed. And then I'll come finally to Nigeria, the Nigeria situations. Max Holloway said that numbers don't lie. Men and women can lie, but numbers don't lie. That goes back to my advocacy for evidence-led policy frameworking, evidence-led decisions, evidence-led advocacy. We need to generate data. We need research. Worker groups, employers groups should be assisted to do research on the real numbers. What are the real numbers? How many people are vulnerable, and where are the gaps? where, what's the form of the shape of gaps that we have, so that we can adequately put square pegs in square holes. I want to say that from the research we did before we went to COP, actually that research was presented at a side event that the NLC organized in the Nigerian pavilion at COP28. And the evidence from that research says, 53% rate of job losses are expected as we make this transition to green economy. And then we also found out that, of course, in alignment with the earlier discovery also is the fact that there are 53% job risk. That means jobs that are at risk in different sectors, in different industries in Nigeria. About 50% of them are at risk because of this transition, this quest to move away from carbon-led production, carbon-led industries to greener and cleaner production processes. Then we also discovered from that research that 40% job losses are expected from Nigeria's agricultural industry. As we know, methane, which is actually a more dangerous gas than carbon dioxide, actually is emitted mainly from the agricultural industry. So as we begin to talk about this transition, a lot of workers who are in the agricultural industry will be affected. Also, the issue of handling of pesticides, handling of herbicides, and some of the fertilizers that are used by farmers. We are going to talk about climate smart agriculture and all. How many of our farmers know about these things? How many of our farmers are aware of the dangers some of these raw materials constitute to their own health and environment? So there's a lot of work to be done. As we get into climate smart agriculture, those who are not aware, most likely will be phased out. What are the social plans, social protection plans for these people that will lose their, especially in the formal economy? It's very important to take cognizance of that. So very striking for me is the fact that 81.4% of Nigerian workers lack insurance against job loss. It talks about social protection. When you lose your job, you lose out. There are no state measures, state interventions to ensure that when you are left out because of inability to transit to greener economic pathways, the state, seems to just leave such people behind. And there are no measures, no incentives, no shock absorbers put in place to actually mitigate the impact of such job losses, for a great segment of our working population. I think it's something that policymakers need to be alert to. And then finally, we discovered that 87.4% of Nigerian workers are financially constrained to make this move to clean and green economic pathways. That for me is very, very disturbing, because workers, you talk about the cost of making this transition is so prohibitive for workers. I mean, something as basic as acquiring solar systems to be able to power homes. How many workers can access that? How many workers are barely trying to survive, trying to eat, trying to feed, trying to do the basics in life, and then they are challenged again with this issue of transition. So many workers, virtually almost 90% of workers in Nigeria don't have the resources to make the transition in their own personal life. And then also, if this shock comes in the workplace, they're not able to make the transition. So it's important that adequate measures are put in. That's why we say workers organizations must be in the discussion framework. Employers also must be in the discussion framework. There must be some social dialogue place. And also, even at a larger scale, we should also encourage tripartite plus, where we have discussion even with civil society, because everybody in society is involved, so that we can be able to make a very decent transition. I'm trying to summarize. I want to make certain recommendations. One, there should be synergy between the labor movement, between the organized labor and the employers organization like NEC. There should be synergy, maybe in the form of an MOU. I remember after the COVID-19 lockdown, the NLC and NEC and TUC came together and signed an MOU that helped to shape the response to the dislocations in the workplace. And that went a long way in safeguarding so many jobs. I remember many employers were panicky. What will happen to jobs? We've lost a lot of we've lost revenue, we've lost productive time and all that, and the only thing that came to mind was to lay off workers. No, but with the intervention of NECA, government was brought into the picture, and I'm sure the incentives provided by government went a long way in assuaging the fears of employers and also helping to re-stimulate the economy. So this kind of understanding can also be struck in terms of managing the environment and also dealing with issues of climate change. We can also sign an MOU with NECA. I think we should start that process of discussion. How do we, because it is a workplace thing and it will not go away. It will not go away on its own. We need to engage it, and engaging it, we must do that systematically. Second, I want to recommend that we should increase funding for workers and employers advocacy and legislative initiatives, because some of these things will have to eventually go into some parliamentary action. So we need to engage. Right now, the Climate Change Act is being reviewed. And many of us we're almost in the dark about it. We need to be, workers organizations need to be alive. It happened the first time when it was enacted. I'm not sure the employers organizations were carried along. If not, I don't know how we would explain that NECA doesn't have a representative in NCCC. Doesn't just make sense. And also, so as we are reviewing this current act, I think it's important that we take actions to ensure that we are well represented in the governance spaces in the NCCC. And then third, robust and independent audit by workers and employers on progress made in achieving Nigeria's nationally determined contributions through voluntary and compulsory monitoring, reporting, and verification. Right now, we're talking about reducing gas flaring. Who monitors that? What we have is voluntary, monitoring, reporting, and verification. That will not help much. We need to have some kind of systematic measures put in place to ensure that oil companies, those involved in energy, that they're actually making the correct reporting and they are being monitored. That these things are also verified by independent sources to ensure that Nigeria is also trying to achieve its aim. Fourth, I'll recommend that climate and environmental accountability be pursued more diligently. We need to have very serious positions on the ecological fund. It's very important. It's at the key, it's at the heart of our environmental interventions. We need to ensure that the money government is spending every year does not go to the to the so-called big boys and big girls. In terms of the environment, it's everybody's business. And so therefore, we must be concerned of how ecological fund is managed. We should also insist that if it's possible, we should also be part of the oversight, whatever oversight framework to be expanded to include, because at the end of the day, it is workers and employers that will bear the brunt of the mismanagement of the environment. Then number 5, I will recommend the strengthening of social dialogue and collective bargaining processes to ensure that we're able to achieve climate-related decent work objectives, including the expansion of the occupational safety and health guidelines we currently have to also incorporate the environment. There's nothing wrong in having occupational, environmental, safety, and health guidelines. So the environment, as we can clearly see from all the presentations made so far, including Dr. Itua's Eco Capital input, that look, environment is critical. Environment is at the heart of business, it's at the heart of work. And therefore, we must, if we don't take care of the environment, then definitely we don't want businesses to be sustainable. We're only running ourselves in grave danger. And in conclusion, whatever plan we're going to come up with, please should align with the ILO guidelines. ILO has a guideline on just transition for environmentally sustainable economies and societies for all. One is that social dialogue, like I've said, is very important. We'll need to discuss. There must be a space for discussion to happen among the social partners to ensure that all the effects, all the impacts, all the constitutive issues around climate change, around environmental degradation are brought to the table and workers are on the table. Because if we're not on the table, clearly it will likely be in the menu. We don't want to be in the menu to be devoured. Then 2, development of skills and retraining for green jobs should be prioritized. There must be very conscious effort to ensure that skills of workers who are currently in different industries, especially those that are vulnerable to climate change and also those who we anticipate that will be involved in the just transition, that their skills are upped, they are retrained, they are reskilled, so that we can also assuage the danger. If we don't do that, resistance will be high. That is why when people finish talking, they bring this back and discuss it somehow in the workplace, and people just dismiss it because they're not ready for it. We should get a workforce, not just in Nigeria, but all over the world, in Africa, ready for this for this transition to green and clean energy and green and clean economy. Third, development of green enterprises should be pursued. we should also make sure that the current spendings, our budget votes, also planning of expansions in the workplace takes into cognizance the need to promote and develop green enterprises. Number 4, promotion of active labor policies is important. We need to make sure that our labor policies that are relevant to the needs of the hour. We need to ensure that we have a strong monitoring and supervisory mechanisms, where develop strong labor market systems to ensure that that the needs of workers and the needs of the workforce are taken care of. Number 5, provision of social protection should be considered crucial. We need social protection. We cannot say enough of that. Some workers may not be able to transit. What do you do with them? We need to provide funds to ensure in terms of their retirement package, in terms of their post-work experience, their mobility, housing, and all that. All those things we need to increase spending on social protection if we want workers to actually embrace this transition to green economy. 5, we should minimize hardship for workers. 7, adequate public policies to address the needs of workers, both those that are socially and industrial related. 8, there should be continuous engagement with all stakeholders, especially the social partners. This kind of conversation should not stop. We should continue to consult. We should continue to hold meetings. I'm so happy NECA organized this, and I'm sure in not too far from now, the NLC will organize a program, a post-COP program, to discuss some of these issues, and I expect NECA to also be present. We need to continuously engage. Government should also engage workers. It should not just be a matter of it is a broad, yes, it's a broad citizenry concern. It concerns every aspect of the wider population, but then it centrally affects and impacts workers and employers of labor. Finally, it is helpful to assess response measures beyond design phase. As we are designing, some of these policies, some of these laws, it's important to actually identify early enough the impact on employment, the impact on inclusive economic growth and decent work, especially in developing countries, which Nigeria is also involved, and then both quantitatively and qualitatively. Finally, my last word is that it's important that to note there are no jobs, there will be no revenue, there will be no profit, there will be no development, and no form of human existence on a dead planet. We must protect the environment. The environment accommodates all of us. If we don't take good care of it, if we cave in on us, and life on earth as we know it today will stop to exist. So we must take action, and the time to take action is now. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time and ears.
Thank you so much, comrade. That was highly impactful. And I believe that as a worker, just like you mentioned, that we must demand environmental accountability and take ownership in driving towards achieving the sustainability. And I'm sure each and every one of us here, we've been able to pick one thing or the other for our use. Okay, so I won't be calling for question and answer this time because our time is fast spent. However, please, we need to send any question we have to neca@neca.org.ng. I already sent this to the group chat. Please, let's send our question in so that we can receive a response regarding each of our questions. Okay, so now I'll be calling on the DG, that's of Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde, the GG for NECA House. Okay, we welcome you, sir, to give our closing remark.
Good afternoon.
Good day.
Good afternoon, comrade.
Good day.
Good afternoon. This is your cap. I need to collect this your cap after this program, comrade.
I offer you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So good afternoon, colleagues. I think this is quite awesome. We have just over 130 people on the call, and this just reinforces the fact that this program is timely, is part of the conversations that we should be having at this very important time. And I really want to thank comrade. I want to thank Dr. Itua. I want to thank everybody that has made this happen. I want to thank participants that have also joined us. For us in NECA, somebody might wonder why go into ESG, into sustainability, into green economy. And some probably know us as, okay, Employers Federation, labor issues, employment relation issues only. But really, NECA as an association have evolved over the years, from just an employers federation to a true business membership organization, a true business membership organization. So every issue that affects organized businesses become our concern. As the environment continue to move, as the workplace continue to evolve, as the business environment continue to evolve, we've positioned ourselves to continue to be a key stakeholder in those communications that affect our member business, our members, basically. We have positioned ourselves to be, or we are positioning ourselves to be the go-to organization and to be the bridge for our members on all issues, not only that are currently affecting them, but issues that might affect them in future, just like ESG. So this program is just one of the many programs that we have packaged to continue to engage and to continue to enlighten ourselves and position organized businesses in such a way that they can remain sustainable over many years and they can also remain competitive for as long as they want to be. Now, I mentioned this is just one of the series. It will also interest you, and probably my colleagues have mentioned, that beyond our deepened partnership with Natural Agro Capital, we also have a very strong partnership with the International Labour Organization. And in the next few days, we'll also be reaching out to all of you. If you've not dropped your email or your contact, please do. Because we're also, through the partnership with the International Labour Organization, we're also coming up with a definitive training program on ESG and sustainability. The idea is also to continue to deepen that conversation at the national level, deepen the conversation at the enterprise level, so that we are all positioned to leverage on this critical advantage when the time comes. ESG is becoming a key parameter for businesses that want to operate out of this country. And at a point, we also know that it might become a very strong regulatory requirement even in this environment. So I want to thank everybody that have participated in this program. We'll be sharing those information with you. Our collaboration with ILO, when the time for the training starts, we'll also be reaching out to you to also play your part in that context. At the global level also, NECA has also positioned itself to be a major player in the context of just transition at the ILO and also in the green economy as a whole. Last year, we were also participants at the COP28 program in Dubai. We were not sponsored by government. NECA sponsored the staff through our partnership to Dubai COP28 to also be part of that conversation. And it will surprise you that when government came back, everybody went back to their normal activities without looking back to, okay, what exactly is happening post COP28? But we have taken that responsibility with Natural Agro Capital and also with the International Organization of Employers to continue to deepen the conversation about what happened in COP28. And we're already preparing for COP29 in Azerbaijan later this year. So we are calling on everyone to partner with us and Natural Agro Capital in this very important drive towards sustainability for all of us. So once again, I want to appreciate Comrade. I want to appreciate Dr. Ichua. I want to appreciate the last speaker. We are not taking your time for granted, and all participants have also stayed up to this time. It communicates your passion and the realization of the real issues that we are trying to solve in this space. Next week, to also emphasize our commitment to this process, our employability scheme, our annual employability scheme, we'll be having the one for 2024, the Lagos Run, in our office in Alausa next week from 14 to 15. And the focus is on green economy. The focus is on green jobs. Because we know there is massive jobs in the context of the green economy that we are not focusing on. So NECA is taking the bull by the horn, drawing attention of governments, attention of stakeholders to the massive opportunities that exist in the context of the green economy. We also wish that you join us virtually on the 14th, then on the 15th will be the physical engagement with participants, with graduates that will be coming for the job fair, and also the opportunity to appreciate member companies that will be, we have over 30 companies that have signified interest, and they have also logged in to come and recruit at the job fair next week. So once again, I want to really appreciate the speakers. I also appreciate my colleagues that have driven this with passion. They've driven this with a very high commitment. Colleagues from NECA side and colleagues from Natural Eco Capital side. I want to thank you very much for what you've done. And hopefully in the next few days, we'll also be communicating to participants on our engagement with the International Labour Organization on this issue of ESG, sustainability, just transition, and climate change as it affects all of us. So thank you once again for joining us. And I will off the mic now, as they say in the house. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, everyone on the call. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time. It shows how important this topic of ESG and sustainability is to all of us, as DG has mentioned, and all the facilitators. We appreciate you, and we'll say enjoy the rest of the day. Kindly send your questions if you have some. Kindly send them to neca@neca.org. In the chat room the registration link for the job fair. Kindly of your day. Thank you. Bye, everyone.